Good afternoon or evening. My name is Gabrielle and welcome to the webinar Protecting Your Energy While Growing Your Business. This is a live webinar which we are also broadcasting live across the Get Real with Gab YouTube channel. For everyone who is attending, if you would like to put your name and where you're coming from throughout the world, just put it in the chat. We'd love to know where you're coming from. Moderating today's webinar is Jeremy Bognick, and at the end of this session there will be a 5-minute Q&A. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat and Jeremy will be happy to take those questions and propose them to us at the end of the webinar. For those of you who may not know who I am the founder of Dynamic Unicorns, a business advisory firm that delivers strategic advisory services, fractional support, workshops, webinars, and project-based support to startups, side hustles, and small businesses across Australia, Canada, North America, and Europe. Our guest speaker today is Bonnie Levine. Bonnie is a respected leader in Canada's charitable and non-profit sector with over 35 years of experience guiding organisations through challenges and change. She has led teams in high-stress environments with limited budgets, transforming under-resourced agencies into sustainable, community-focused organisations. Bonnie served 17 years as Executive Director of Victim Services Toronto, strengthening trauma-informed programs for people affected by crime and tragedy. She spent 5 years as an Executive Director of Toronto East Counselling and Support Services, supporting individuals with mental health challenges. 5 years as Organisational Coordinator of Oriel Community Services, fostering local engagement, and most recently as Executive Director of Toronto Cat Rescue, advancing one of Canada's largest volunteer-driven animal welfare networks. Her expertise includes governance, strategy, and policy development, grant acquisition, and legislative compliance. Welcome, Bonnie. We really appreciate you taking the time to chat to us today about honest, practical, and compassionate ways to protect your energy while continuing to make an impact on your business or organisation. I want to begin by asking you, how did you start your career and what path led you to Victim Services Toronto?
Yeah, it's hard to really know what path I would have chosen if all paths were present before me. So if I knew all the choices, but we really rarely get to know all the choices. We get to know a handful of choices that are in front of us, our parents' friends. When I was young, I grew up with a single mother who was absolutely miserable at her job. Um, and I watched her and I realized I do not want to spend most of the hours that I'm awake. I do not want to spend them miserable. So I want to feel happy with what I'm doing. I want to enjoy what I'm doing. And I started thinking about what were the ideas that I can do. My mother had a friend who worked in palliative care. She worked in a long-term seniors residence. And she was talking about her work with the residents. She spoke about them so highly, and she said she felt so fulfilled, and what she was doing was so important. And she talked about the privilege of being there for people when they died. And it really, really moved me. And I thought, that's it. That's what I want to do. If I could spend my life, feeling like I'm making a difference, I'll feel good. I knew I wasn't going to make lots of money, but so I decided to go into the social services field. And my first job was working with seniors, which I didn't enjoy as much as she did.
Yeah.
Uh, then I started working. I worked at a domestic violence shelter, frontline. I worked at a homeless women's shelter. I worked with people with mental illness. I worked with newcomers to Canada. I worked in many, many different sectors. And I really did find them all fulfilling, and it really helped shape who I am today. I spent the longest part of my career. I've been in social services actually closer to 40 years.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, and half of that, 21 years, was in the victims services sector. So yeah, it's been an honor and a privilege. I really feel good about my career. I am looking forward to retiring, though.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, as a leader of an organization that helped people facing such extreme circumstances, when a crisis occurred or issues arose with staff, especially around mental health, burnout, or personal struggles, how did you handle them? Can you give us an example?
Yeah. So this one is difficult because victim services, the staff were very unique in that they were in trauma, working in trauma from the moment they got to work to the minute they got home. Unlike police, you think, police work in trauma a lot. Police have varied duties. They go on patrol, or they, do speeding tickets. They have administrative duties. But our staff are working with victims really in the immediate aftermath of a crime. So, in the throes of trauma, um, real every single day. So we really, our staff really struggled with vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, and of course there was burnout. And I think even some of our staff, they were suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. So yeah, we've seen it all. Like personally, I remember there was this one staff who was working with a domestic violence victim whose actually her head was like almost severed by her abusive spouse. And she said, when I got home, like I had nothing left in me, like nothing. And she had
Mhm.
a young child who was crying and needing her to, comfort her. And, she had a paper cut. And she said, I had like no empathy left. I just couldn't give it. And, like, what are you crying over this little paper cut? Don't you know people are
Yeah.
have so much worse? So yeah, our staff were really in it. Um, One of the things about addressing it in the workplace is talking about mental health openly. You really have to destigmatize it. A lot of people have sympathy for people with physical health issues or physical limitations or medical illnesses, but there's not a lot of sympathy or care for people who are dealing with stress, burnout, and a variety of mental health issues. I used to hear staff say, like, dismiss people and say, "Oh, well, she has mental health." Um,
Yeah.
and I would challenge that. It's like any bias or stereotypes that you have in the workplace, you really need to challenge that because if a person is struggling at all, it doesn't invalidate that person or that person's experience. Even though we didn't have a lot of money at the beginning, we did grow and we were able to do more and more things. There were some practical things that I did to support staff that I think were important. So, one of the things I introduced that staff absolutely loved, it really made them so happy, was I introduced something called recovery days.
Yeah.
And these were days, they weren't vacation days, and they weren't sick days, and there was no limit. So if, for example, staff, went out and was working with on scene with a very emotionally trying victim situation, there was a baby death or something really horrific happened, and it's affected them, the manager was able to say, you know what, don't come in tomorrow. And they didn't have to use their sick days. They didn't have to use their vacation days just to recover from a trying situation.
Mhm.
Um, I also started something called clinical consultation. So I hired external social workers where staff could talk to these people. Like they didn't report to us, like they didn't tell us what staff discussed, but staff were able to talk about how the workplace was impacting them personally.
Yeah.
And they can do that without fear of reprisal. And another thing I did was I reduced the work week from 40 hours a week to 35 hours a week. So, but instead of them working, they all worked 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Um, I reduced it to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week but they can take the 10th day off. So every other
Okay.
week they got a day off. This was really, these things that I implemented really, really were appreciated by staff.
Yeah, and I guess they were low cost as well because they're getting paid even though, they didn't turn up for that day's work. They're still getting paid as an employee for that day that they're taking off for a mental health day. Yeah,
Yes,
awesome.
exactly.
The role of appreciation and acknowledgement play in protecting your energy. As a small business or a nonprofit leaders, how can they foster open, trusting communication around stress, mental health, and self-care? And then what does appreciation and acknowledgement play in that when it comes to protecting your energy?
Yeah, so the first thing I think that leaders of organizations need to do is look at themselves and really acknowledge your own biases about mental health.
Yeah,
You really have to challenge your biases and think about it before you can help others feel safe and comfortable about talking about stress and mental health, and self-care in the workplace. I think generally overall that staff want their boss to respect them. They want them to think highly about them, and they don't really want to look weak, or anything less than great in
yeah,
front of their boss. So it's really important for the leader to set the conversation, to be in an unbiased and supportive manner as possible.
yeah,
Um, as a leader, every word that you utter has really great impact on your employees. And recognizing your power is so important. I was always aware of my power. So if I said hello to one person and not another person, I know that that other person was going to feel it. They were going to think about it. They were going to think I was mad at them.
mhm,
So your behavior, your words, have, they're echoed 10 times more than they are with peers,
yeah,
people you work with. So to create a truly healthy work environment, you have to look at yourself and decide who you want to be as a leader. I always saw myself as a servant leader, and that means that, I saw it as my role to make sure that everyone in the organization had exactly what they needed in order to do their jobs to the very best of their abilities, whether it's training or coaching or a better database. It was my job to make sure that everyone had what they needed to succeed. And if it was also mental health supports, that was also my job.
mhm,
Um, so but that kind of leader forces you to really need to know what's going around you so that you can get people what's going on around you so you can get people what they need. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I was always really busy and I was very task oriented, and I was focused on getting things done. But I had a really good management team who knew that I really wanted to know the good, the bad, the ugly. And so if I didn't notice something, they would say to me, "Oh, did you notice so and so was struggling?" Or I just wanted to let you know that she separated from her husband or
Mhm.
had a miscarriage or anything serious, and then I was able to address it in the ways that that staff needed it.
Yeah.
Um, in
Yeah.
terms of demonstrating appreciation,
Yeah.
yeah, it goes a long way, but it also comes down to your leadership. The success of any organization, any business is never because of one person alone. And it's always because that many people made it happen. We had really a lot of incredible new initiatives that really put the organization on the map. And I have to admit that most of those ideas were not mine. They didn't come from me. So
Yeah.
to develop a thriving organization, you need everyone around you who's engaged, and has good ideas and has initiative and leadership. Um, that's why I chose to be a leader who leads from behind. Um, it means I put other people in the forefront, especially when it came to giving credit. Um, as a leader, you give the credit and you take the blame.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah.
So that leads me to my next question around leadership. So, from your experience, how can small businesses and non for profit leaders build leadership in others while still protecting their own time and focus?
Um, at Victim Services, we took on a lot of social work students who did their practicums at our organization, and I had this one student who graduated, and she got hired to fulfill a maternity leave. It was a temporary job, and a few months into her job, she came to me and she told me that it was her absolute dream to work at Victim Services. And she begged me, like, how can she stay after the person came back from maternity leave? And at that time, we were dirt poor, and I couldn't just hire her. So I said to her, listen, if you can come up with a new program and
Mhm.
I can sell it and get funding for it, you'll have a job. And she came up with the most innovative, sellable programs to do with children, right? Which was something that was amazing, and also with preventing violence. That really donors flocked to our organization. The support was coming in, and I was eventually able to get permanent funding for that program.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to encourage employees no matter what the position is. I don't even care if they are the person that cleans the office. Um,
Mhm.
Employees really should be encouraged to take ownership, to take initiative, to come forward with ideas, and to trust that if they do have a good idea, that you're going to give them credit for it.
Yeah,
And
amazing.
it'll snowball. It
Yeah,
just,
one will encourage the other.
yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. So, what does protecting your energy personally mean to you as a leader, Bonnie? Like, what would be your tips for self renewal and sustainable leadership?
Yeah, so I was thinking about, like, how did I protect myself? And there were two important things that I think I did to protect myself. What the first one is to hire capable, competent, and dedicated employees.
Mhm.
And if you find out it's not a good fit, don't waste time. You need to let people go where it's not working out. But if you once you have those capable, competent, dedicated employees, then you really have to trust them, and you have to give them autonomy and freedom in their jobs. And that really encourages them to build their leadership capacity. And the more that they're a leader, the freer you are as a leader. I've
Mhm.
really seen too many leaders who really they want to know everything, they want to review everything, they get involved in every single decision, and by doing that, you're actually creating staff dependence on you. And
Mhm.
you're the only one who can make a
Wow.
decision, and then you can't take a break. So so really by encouraging leadership and uh, innovation in others, you
Mhm.
will have an easier time of it. And of
Yeah.
course, if you're not there and someone makes a decision that is a decision that you wouldn't make, maybe you wouldn't have made that mistake if you were there. But honestly, as they become leaders, sometimes they don't make a mistake that you would have. Everyone makes a mistake, everyone does it differently, but it doesn't mean it's the only way.
Yeah, of course. Of course. And so if we look back on your own career as a leader, Bonnie, what's one achievement you're most proud of, and what did it teach you about balance and resilience?
Um, I have two things that I'm really proud of. I took three different organizations that were on the verge of closure for various reasons, and I worked really hard um, getting people involved in this cause, and turn them into thriving, respected, and really responsive community organizations. And I'm really proud of that because by doing that, those services still exist. They're still helping people, and they've really saved hundreds of lives. So I'm proud of the work that I've done organizationally. But I'm also proud about the leadership that I've inspired in others. Um, you know, uh, I, so many of the former staff have called me and said, you were my mentor. I would have never done this if had it not been for you. You believed in me, and that meant so much to me. And I've always thought if I could really impact one person's life in a significant way that was meaningful, I would feel that I've done good, and I would feel proud of that. So yeah, that's
Amazing.
those are the two things.
Amazing. And I guess outside of work, what helps you recharge and keep perspective?
Um, so yeah, honestly, like people are the most draining part of the work, and they're also the most rewarding part of the work. And spending time with family and friends, walking in natures, being outdoor, being with animals. I'm a real animal lover. Those are the things that help me recharge. And the things that help me keep perspective are some of the simple things, like be kind, don't sweat the small stuff, stay humble, and remember what really matters and what's important. So, that kind of self talk.
Sure. Are you a dog or a cat lover or a bird, rabbit,
I
all
love
animals?
animals.
Yeah,
all animals. Yeah.
amazing. Do you have a favorite?
I really am a cat lover. I've had cats. I've worked with cats. I find them adorable, but I love dogs. I love rabbits. I love birds. I had a little lizard. My daughter has a snake.
Easy. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, reptiles.
yeah, yeah. I just like animals.
Amazing. And I guess I've got one last question for you today, Bonnie. If you could give one piece of advice to small businesses and non-for-profit leaders trying to protect their energy right now, what would it be?
Um, yeah, I guess my piece of advice would be to be the leader you want to be, like to be aware of your leadership. Um, Even if you have, for example, tendencies toward being a task-oriented person, you can you can decide who you want to be as a leader and make those conscious choices, and they will have an effect on your not only your workplace, but your work-life balance as well. Um,
Yeah, that's amazing and really good advice as well. So I guess that comes to our Q&A session of the webinar. I'm just having a look in the questions, or Jeremy, are there any questions that people have posted that would
Yep.
like some advice on? Sure.
Yeah. So first question is, what have you done in the past to create the environment of psychosocial safety?
Okay.
what have I done? Yeah, the we I developed a code of conduct in the organization where, I mean, sometimes there are behaviors, people whisper and talk, and other people feel excluded, where, I outlined some behaviors that are really not acceptable in a workplace, and need to be eliminated from the workplace. And then there are behaviors, if you come in, you speak with everyone, you say hello to everyone, you're pleasant with everyone. So, it's really around policy development and uh, setting the expectations around behavior in the workplace so that everyone comes to work feeling safe, and feeling supported. Everyone, you do have personalities in the organization, and some people aren't going to like other people. But if they want to talk about it, they got to take it all the way outside the organization. And I don't mean that they step out the door and start whispering. I mean, they got to talk to people who are not involved in the organization about what's going on for them, because it's insidious, and it really can infect an organization very quickly. So, and it's also mirroring the behaviors that you want to see, demonstrating respect for people, listening to people, those types of things.
Right. Now, I have a question here for Gab. Do you
Yes.
have any tips for maintaining momentum and ambition while still preventing overextension?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I guess, like, having moved to Canada, I've really had to address the issue of momentum and ambition and burnout. Leading up to me moving here, I was quite burnt out. And so I've really had to take a step back and really focus on the things that need to be done in the business that will actually move us forward rather than trying to tackle everything. And so self-preservation has been a really top priority for me. And so I've been doing things, for example, going to the gym, going for a walk. I've actually invested in some equipment called the Pulsetto, which I wear around my neck every evening to try and calm my vagus nerve, try and reduce some of that stress. I'm naturally, I guess you could say, quite a highly strung person or high achiever, or someone that when I put my mind to it, it's like go, 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 and it's go at no cost, hence why I don't do team sports. And so I've really had to address that issue so I don't burn out and I can be effective for my employees that I have. And so it's just really taking the time and focusing my energy where it needs to be and not on the things that aren't going to move me forward.
Right. Now, this next question is for Bonnie. How do you navigate conversations that you described when dealing with sensitive issues,
Yeah.
particularly like because Canada is known as a more uh, conservative culture. In Australia they share more in certain things. Canada is more conservative in that sense. Um, how do you navigate these kind of difficult or sensitive issues?
I'm not sure that I fully understand. I think Canada may be conservative, but I think our social service system is not conservative at all. And we're more used to and open about feeling discomfort and acknowledging it and speaking about it. I think we're not as conservative in the social service sector. Oh, I think there's a lot of activists too in the sector. So those conversations, those difficult conversations, I'm not saying that they always go well, but I do think it's also about laying the ground rules for communicating respectfully. Because if you really and truly come at a place of of not of not wanting to do harm, right? Like coming at it in good faith, then if someone says something that not may be a little bit ignorant, you may not take it as personally, and it won't get overheated. So um, it's around setting the ground rules and then the conversations and being authentic, of course.
That's great.
Um, yeah.
Now, there's another question. Did you ever have staff members face racial trauma from dealing with the victim that you may have felt poorly equipped to coach them through? And then what was your approach in that sort of situation?
Yeah, we have had staff experience racism from clients that that has definitely happened. If a client is yelling at a staff person, I think being trauma informed, I think they know and understanding how trauma manifests and how it comes out. I think that the staff understand that sometimes they're being lashed out at because they just need someone to be lashed out. We do debrief with our clients and with our staff, and all staff are allowed to leave situations where they are uncomfortable. They're saying this is you need to speak with me respectfully. If you can't do that, I'll get you another counselor. I need to remove myself from this situation, or they are allowed to end the call if it's over the phone. So they have those absolute permissions and those rights, and then we support the staff um, as needed. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, I have one last question. It starts off by saying, and this is anonymous, so I don't know who it is, but it says, Bonnie, you sound like an incredible leader. Would have loved to have been under your leadership. As a bit of a perfectionist, how can I manage my stress levels when many demands hit and still lead a team well?
When many demands hit,
Probably at the same time, and
yeah.
then you're still trying to lead the team as well. So you got many demands of your particular job or your role, but also you're trying to lead a team at the same time. And you're a perfectionist, so you're trying to make sure everything is done the way you want, or to that level.
That's the problem, is the being the perfectionist, right? And you have to let your team take the lead sometimes, and you have to let go the perfect for the good in moments where everything is coming at you, and we've been through it. Uh we had in it was 2018, there was a attack in North York, a van attack where a gentleman, well, maybe not gentleman, but a man drove a van all the way down Yonge Street, he killed, I think, 11 people and 16 people were injured. It was just horrific. Many witnesses and victims. And our organization was in crisis. There was so much coming at us. And you know, we just had to let some calls go, like, people calling to, offer help. Like those calls didn't get answered or returned because we were focused on uh, s- the people who needed us the most. That's my only advice, is really, really rely on your team and build a team that is great. And you'll have some relief, and not everything's going to be perfect, and you have to be okay with that.
I guess just on a follow-up on that with that particular case, I'm sure some other protocols and things, because you never experienced something that to that level, maybe building a plan after that. So when similar things come in, it's not such an overwhelming challenge. You build sort of strategies. So even though you may be a perfectionist, you still now have a plan that everyone needs can follow.
Correct. Right? And sometimes it's hard to imagine and plan all the things that are going to come at you. Like there was media, there were people saying I'm not getting services, there was, and then that was affecting the staff when they were working, so many hours. There was so much going on and we didn't know really what to expect. I think after that, we certainly put a plan in place, but we just figured
Rolled
it
with
out
it.
as
Yeah,
we went along.
yeah, rolled with it and just tried to address it as it came
Yeah,
in. Well, that was
Amazing.
all the questions. Sorry.
No, no, no. I was just going to say, that's amazing, Bonnie. So I just wanted to also say, Bonnie, that, we really appreciate your time today. And especially, the wisdom you have shared with us, to do with the topic of protecting yourself in, the working environment and protecting your energy. I have put a QR code up there for anyone who may be interested in having a 20-minute discovery session with myself. That could be around today's topic, or it can be if you're wanting some strategy or advice to do with your business. But once again, we really appreciate your time today, Bonnie, and I thank you all for joining. This concludes the webinar, and I really hope Bonnie's insights will help create space and energy for your business or your organization. Yeah, thank you so much for joining, and I hope you have a great day today.
thanks, Gabrielle.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone.